Legend of War here, and today we're going to be going over the new content that was added last night with patch 3.1, including Harald Hammerstorm, which is a new FLC character for the Warriors of Chaos, and he's essentially an undivided exalted hero. So I've got here an existing Be'lakor campaign that I've just been playing in my own time, and I was on turn 86, I think. I hit end turn, the mission for him shows up. Got him on that turn because you just need to be at rank 15, which Be'lakor was already at rank 50. So I would have gotten him a lot earlier, but obviously he wasn't available prior to today. And then all you have to do is just kill 3,000 people across battles. So that was very easy to do in a late campaign because I've got multiple battles going on every single turn. So very easily got him, showed up in Be'lakor's position, and I've attached him to the army. So looking over what he provides, in terms of his equipment, so I've equipped him up with an Armor of Destiny and Talisman of Preservation, but his unique weapons are the Hammer of Harry, which provides Undivided Authority +2, Melee Attack +5, Armor Piercing Weapon Damage +50, a placeholder ability, the Hammer of Harry. Now, it's not really a big deal that they've still got that PH in there, but that's just really sort of indicative that they're kind of rushing this stuff out a little bit, because that's what we would see normally in early access, like really early access. It's not a big deal though. But what this ability does is just an explosion ability. So that's good. No real downside to that. Then you've got the enchanted item, the Bane Shield, which provides leadership aura size plus 25%. So this guy is really big on leadership aura size. He's got loads of things that increases it. Character order or a leadership effect +2. Physical resistance 10%. And the placeholder ability, passive ability, the Bane Shield, which provides him with extra melee defense and base weapon damage and armor piercing weapon damage -10% for enemy units within a 35-meter effect radius. So that's interesting. I don't know why that the melee defense just isn't included in his like above stats there, since it would have the exact same effect. So that's just interesting. But those are okay unique items for a hero. You know, he's no Ariel or Croak, but at least he's free of upkeep cost, and there's really no downside to getting him. So his trait as well is Forsaken Avatar of Chaos. Diplomatic relations -20 with vampiric factions and followers of Nagash. Not a big deal when playing as Warriors of Chaos. Screw the vampires. Immune to vampiric attrition and leadership +8 to the hero's army. So that's all fairly useful, apart from the reduced diplomatic relations. But again, I don't think that's a big deal. If we have a look at his skills, his skill line is relatively generic with a exalted hero that's undivided, except that he doesn't get any mounts. So they would normally get a Barded Warhorse, or Chaos Steed, I mean, and a Chaos Shrine if you've got the DLC, and a Manticore. And he just doesn't have any of that. But he does have a unique line here that's actually pretty good. So we've got Primeval, hit points +15%, hero self-defense +100% chance of wounding aggressors. So I assume that means that anybody that tries to assassinate him will be wounded in response. So that makes him immune, I think, to being assassinated. So that's quite good. Savage Grace, bonus versus infantry +10, attribute Perfect Vigor. Yeah, that's good. Dead Slayer, leadership +10 when fighting against the undead, vigor loss reduction -20% hero's army, and enable flaming attacks for the hero's army. I'm always a little bit wary about enabling flaming attacks for the hero's army. You really got to be careful with that if you're facing off against high elves or chaos dwarves who have naturally a lot of fire resistance, especially the Chaos Dwarves, because enabling flaming attacks against a character that has flame resistance actually weakens your army. So if you're going up against the Chaos Dwarves, do not bring Harald Hammerstorm with this ability, because he will be a huge detriment to your army, because just about every single one of their units, well, at least Chaos Dwarf units, so their goblins won't get this, but anything that has essentially like Black Shard armor will have at least 25% flame resistance. So very bad to bring that without also the flammable ability, which the Warriors of Chaos don't really get. If you couple him with a Fire Wizard that has Kindle Flame, you can sort of negate it a little bit, but that requires you to constantly keep casting just to negate that. So that's a bit iffy there. Again, his big thing is going after the undead, and the dead don't really have much flaming resistance, and is actually quite good against all their regen, so that is actually useful against them. But don't bring him against Chaos Wars, huge mistake. Then you've got Gravedigger, which gives melee defense +6 for the hero's army. That's very good regardless of what you've got in your army. Double experience gain when fighting against the undead. Everlasting Anvil, providing himself with Chaos Armor, which gives melee damage reflection plus 28 and missile block chance plus 20, giving him gold shields, when you eventually get it. Then you've got extra armor plus 15 for the hero's army, which is good. Armageddon, which provides weapon strength plus 15%, ward save plus 10%. So, and then he's got his just generic melee line, and these are the generic skills that an exalted hero would get, and same things with these over here. Overall, seems pretty good. And then you've got the Path to Glory. This is like quite unique, these ones here. So you've got one true hammer, which requires him to kill Karl Franz, which is unfortunate for this particular campaign because I killed Karl Franz off quite some time ago. But luckily, if I really want to get it, I can revive Karl Franz. It is possible. And kill him and then just put him back in the dirt again. Bonus versus large plus 8, leadership aura size plus 100%, so that's really huge, and armor piercing weapon damage plus 100. I don't really care that much about leadership aura size, but I definitely like the bonus versus large and armor piercing weapon damage. And you've got No One's Fool, which provides you with 40 relations with the Chaos faction, so that's quite useful, unless you're playing as Archaon, who gets tons of diplomatic relations as he gets more and more vassals, so he doesn't really need that extra 40, but everyone else would benefit from that. Chaos Undivided Corruption, local province plus 5, and a whopping 15% ward save, requiring you to kill a greater demon lord. So I imagine you have to actually kill a lord, not just a greater demon, so you have to go up against an exalted Bloodthirster, or Keeper of Secrets, exalted Lord of Change, or Great Unclean One. So for example, in this particular campaign, I've left the Maggotkin alive as my vassal, so I could kill their faction leader over here, like cancel his vassal, go over here, smash him, get that boon of chaos, and then re-vassalize him. Could do that in this campaign here, as an example. I imagine that killing the legendary lords of the demons, the divided demons, would also work, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Then Deadbane, kill a legendary undead character. So, list of undead legendary characters in the game. There are currently 6. Now, I'm not sure if Isabella von Carstein would count. She's technically a legendary character, but would that trigger it? I'm not sure. I'd have to test this kind of stuff out, but the 6 legendary undead characters... Well, it says kill a legendary undead character, not a vampire character. So it might mean a vampire count. So that is Heinrich Kemmler, Isabella von Carstein, Vlad von Carstein, Manfred von Carstein, the Red Duke, Heinrich Kemmler, and Helman Gorst. Could also mean the Tomb Kings. There are 4 legendary lords for that. And also could also mean the Vampire Coast, which is another 4 legendary lords. Again, not sure. I only just got this, so I'd have to test that out. I imagine it would, because it applies melee attack with Vampire Counts, Vampire Coast, and Tomb Kings, and immune to psychology for all units in the army. So those are some really good boons of chaos there. Big incentives to go and get that stuff done. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how he's been implemented. He's not like an aerial or croak type level of strength, but he doesn't require any upkeep costs, so there's no downside to getting him. You can put him into any army apart from when you're fighting against Chaos Dwarves, and he would be pretty useful, I think. We'll go and fight the dwarfs over here, and I'll put him in battle and see how he personally performs soon. But yeah, let's move on to the patch notes now, and we'll get into that battle in a bit. So with the patch notes here, I'm not going to go over everything because a lot of the stuff here is trivial. I just want to go over the main notes. And what I mean by trivial is like stat bonus here, stat debuff there. I don't care about that. That doesn't really change gameplay. Oh, hang on, let me just stop this from being noisy. That doesn't really change gameplay that much. I want to go over the things that I think are major changes. Okay, so overall, though, I am pretty happy with this patch 3.1. So the main things to note, the new legendary hero, we've covered that. Bretonnia are getting some love with plenty of changes and rebalances. I don't really agree that Bretonnia has changed much with this. I went and had a look at it, and I think it's very little changes. I actually think the Dark Elves are getting a better deal in this patch than Bretonnia. The Great Drill of Hashut will now strike new Chaos Dwarf endgame crisis for Immortal Empires. I haven't tried that out yet, but from what I'm reading, just in terms of interpreting it, which oftentimes the way that the stuff is written is just bullshit, but the way I'm interpreting it seems better than how the other endgame crises are being applied, but I'm not entirely sure. There's more Regiments of Renown, which is great, but not really worth talking about. Because it's just extra Regiments of Renown. You've seen these units. It's just a Regiment of Renown version, which has a stat buff or an ability that the regular version doesn't have. So if we have a look at the endgame crisis stuff, It says here, the Chaos Dwarves seek to expand their empire, exploiting and exterminating all who stand before them. A network of invasion tunnels has been bored from the Darklands to the far reaches of the Warhammer world, and legions of the Dawizar march with impunity. Factions who would dare to stand against the will of Hashut must infiltrate these tunnels to take the war to the very center of the Chaos Dwarf civilization, for the only way to halt the crisis is to conquer Zar Nagrand itself. So, my interpretation of this, without having played it, is that when the Dawizar endgame crisis triggers, there will essentially be rifts or tunnels that open up all across the world, probably at key locations, and that Chaos Dwarves will spew out of them, very similar to the Realms of Chaos. But you can enter those ones yourself, and either use it to teleport to any other entrance. Again, I'm really reaching with this, just because we've seen this mechanic in Realms of Chaos, or just use it to actually get to Zar Nagrand. And if you capture Zar Nagrand, it ends the endgame crisis. It doesn't say anything like about a bonus to actually winning the endgame crisis, which is definitely something I want to see. But this is interesting, at least. It's not just like, oh look, Dawizar get 10 free armies that are super strong, and then they just fizzle out over time, and then it's just super annoying to get rid of them, which is like the other endgame crises. So seeing more interesting endgame crisis is definitely something that I'm hopefully going to get from this, but we'll see. So regiments have been out 4. So yep, just mostly low tier units. I really just don't think it's worth mentioning. You guys can very easily read this stuff yourself, or just access them in campaign. I just don't think it's worth going on about. Alright, so the Bretonnia update. So, on campaign, damsels now benefit from the Troth feature, much like the Knightly Vow feature that other characters benefit from. This is a straight up buff, there's no downside to this. It's good. I don't think the bonuses are gigantic from completing these Troths, but it's better than nothing. It gets a bit of extra growth, makes them immortality before they hit rank 20, and gives them the Blessing of the Lady, which has also gone through a change. If we have a look at the Blessing of the Lady, it now provides plus 15% ward save instead of 25% physical resistance. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I really haven't played much Bretonnia since the game, basically since Warhammer 2. But if I'm not mistaken, the Blessing of the Lady was 20% physical resistance. Not a big deal, but just let me know if I'm wrong. I just don't feel like it was ever 25%. But 15% ward save in Warhammer 3 is definitely better than 20 or 25% physical resistance. Then we've got this statement here, which this is actually really funny for me because this just shows me how little the person who wrote this actually knows about the game. So physical resistance isn't what it used to be. Really? When Warhammer 3 was released, the interaction between magic attacks and physical resistance changed. Really? Did it? Meaning that any unit with magical attacks could bypass and ignore physical resistance of enemy units. Wow, is that only a Warhammer 3 thing? The truth is, physical resistance is what it used to be, and has not changed at all since Warhammer 1. It has always been bypassed by magical attacks, and has always blocked anything that is not a magical attacks. What has changed is magic resistance. Magic resistance used to block magical attacks. It now doesn't. So magical attacks are more useful because you used to be able to block characters that had huge amounts that did magical attacks with just absurd amounts of magic resistance, and now spell resistance only blocks spells. So this really should be rewritten for magic resistance. That being said, ward save has always been better than either magic resistance or physical resistance. But yeah, this left Bretonnia somewhat in the lurch, as all demons have magical attacks, meaning that the Blessing of the Lady was easy to bypass. Yep, that was the case. But I mean, Bretonnia is not that much around demon factions, and this is definitely something that all other factions have to deal with as well, because it's usually easier to get access to physical resistance than it is ward save, and since spell resistance or magic resistance isn't really worth that much now anyway, people don't really worry about it too much. This is why I usually fuse up my obsidian amulets, because they're just not worth much these days. So to address this, they're getting ward save instead of physical resistance, which is good. That's definitely a buff for them. Blessing of the Lady can now be equipped in custom battle. Yep, that's fine. Interplay between Bretonnian knights and peasants is now represented by 2 new attributes, knight and peasant. While I think this adds like a little bit of complexity, the main effect to this is null. It doesn't matter in the slightest. This should have absolutely no impact whatsoever on how you play Bretonnia. Because, let's just go over it. So, knights and knight characters receive the new knight attribute and do not take any leadership penalties if any units with the peasant attribute routes nearby. Now, a lot of the peasants had the expendable attribute before, which meant they already weren't taking leadership penalties from it, and already their leadership was already really high anyway, so they usually wouldn't have cared that much unless they were already near death. So giving them this attribute here to bypass the leadership effect from peasants routing is not very impactful for knights. Then all peasants have received the new peasant attribute, which has no inherent gameplay effect, but is used for ability and tribute targeting purposes. So any units that have the peasant trait, if a knight is nearby them, that knight will provide them with 8 leadership bonus, which is mentioned down here. So that's what the peasant attribute does. Now here's the thing: in order to sort of rebalance that, they've had all of the peasant units have had their leadership reduced by 5. So as long as you have a knight unit nearby, their leadership is essentially increased by about 3. So it requires you to have a much more cohesive army for the most minimal amount of benefit. Like 3 leadership is next to nothing, especially considering peasants rout the moment someone farts in the wrong direction. This isn't really going to change that much, especially considering the Grail Relic, which was kind of needed before to keep their leadership in line, has actually been nerfed in terms of leadership, but buffed in terms of melee attack. I actually think it's a lot better now. Then you've also got Knights Errant receive a new passive ability, Impetuous. When Knights Errant are charging, any friendly unit within 35 minutes, including Knights Errant, it becomes immune to psychology for 30 seconds. All of this stuff here is some of the most trivial shit that I've ever seen in terms of like a rework. This is going to impact Bretonnia by nothing. It's going to make their playstyle not change whatsoever. It's definitely going to make peasant units less viable than they were before, and it's not going to change how knights perform whatsoever. So all of this has been a complete, in my opinion, a complete waste of time. Largely because the impact of these tiny little stat changes just don't matter that much, because it's just stat changes, which aren't that really big of a deal. And I don't think that this is going to make Bretonnia any more popular than it is currently, or it'll only be the slightest of margins. Bretonnia really needs like a big overhaul. These small changes over here, they're not enough. So you've also got minor unit changes all over the place. So Hippogriff Knights have had a noticeable buff. They now receive the benefits from being a Grail Knight. So they get magical attacks, which they didn't have before, perfect vigor, which they didn't have before, and Blessing of the Lady baked into their cost by default, which they didn't have before. So they get that 15% ward save. They also had their collision optimized a bit, and 4 entities have been added to the unit. So previously they had 8. Now we'll go down in a bit and see all the different factions. We'll look at exactly what's happened to the Grail, so the Hippogriff Knights. Then we've got the Grail Relic has been relieved of its leadership buffing role a bit. So before it was plus 12, I believe it's plus 8 now, and now they get extra melee attack. So they're more viable than they were before for sure, because I used to think that Grail Relics were one of the worst units in the game, bar none. And now I'm like, maybe I'd get one. Maybe. Okay, so stability and performance improvement, that's all good. Not worth reading that out though, you can easily read that yourself. This is very useful for me. We now only load the first 25 save games. This is really good for me because I load all of your save files to do disaster battles, and I tend not to delete them that often. So I oftentimes end up with like hundreds of save files, which massively impacts on my performance apparently. So this will save me a bit of time, I hope. So that's good. AI rules and logic will require... I never believe this stuff in the patch notes. This is all... I'll believe that when I see it. And I just haven't had that much time to play it today to really comment on this. So this is something I will comment on in live streams, you know, in future. Because, you know, there'll be a live stream in maybe 1 or 2 weeks. And I'll mention things that I've noticed. But as of yet, because I just haven't played it much today because I've been extremely busy with other things, I just haven't played it enough to really comment on that yet. Tooltips and changes. I know the tooltips have been a bit of a struggle for them. Not a huge issue, but it's quality of life stuff for them to get on with that. Not really worth reading out. Mass changes, that's fine. A lot of the mass increases have... there's been mass increases across the board. Stat changes to abilities. Yeah, not going to go over every little thing. I'm just trying to see if there's some ones in here. Lord of Torment, that was particularly useful for this particular campaign that I'm playing, because this was essentially a useless ability, because the intensity would be like 1% for every routing unit, but now it's 20%, so that's much better. Blessing of the Lady. Again, I'm still questioning whether that was 25%. I think it was 20, but, you know, let me know. So that one there is for Gotrek, so that's good to see that it got fixed up. But you know, there. Oh yeah, Lance Formation. This one. So with the Bretonian cavalry getting a bit of a stat rework, Lance Formation has been nerfed slightly to compensate for these new numbers. Mass buff from 50 to 30, charge bonus buff 40 to 30, acceleration buff 40 to 30. Because we all know that Lance Formation has been one of the most abused abilities in the game. Not. It's just a very low impact. It's so hard to see. If I was to play the same battle back to back, one time using Lance Formation and one time not using Lance Formation, I would fail to see the difference in outcome playing the battle the exact same way. So Lance Formation has always felt to me a very nothing bonus or ability. So I feel like they could use a little bit more of a work on that one. You know what game had really good wedge formation mechanics? Total War Attila. As much as I piss on Total War Attila a lot, their battle systems were really good with formations. And I mean really good, because they were significantly impactful. Things like Lance Formation or Wedge Formation in Total War Attila drastically changed how the unit would function. They would go from having like plus 100%, I can't remember exactly, 100% extra charge bonus, and it really made a big difference, but they would lose their missile block. You know, it would give them a serious debuff, but give them a massive improvement. So it was really tactical. So that kind of stuff with formations would be really useful to import that into Total War Warhammer from Total War Attila. Because as much as I shit on Total War Attila, it's got some really good stuff in the game. Especially with wedge formation, I really like that. And diamond formation as well. Very, very interesting formations. And that's what you want with these abilities. You don't want them to be like, +1 extra leadership on a Tuesday when charging down a hill against chaos. That kind of shit is useless. You want stuff that has a serious drawback and a serious bonus. That way there's actual impact to your decision in using it. You don't just always click it. You have to actually decide when it's a good time and when it's not a good time. That's when you make good abilities. Venom Staff has always been shit, so because it took so long to wind up. So that's good that it's a lot quicker now. Yeah, other things. Oh yeah, Vial of Hashut. So this is interesting. In a bad way. Weakness to fire has been reduced from 60% to 20%. The thing is with the Vial of Hashut is that it only has one use of it per battle, and you can only cast it on one entity, either a unit or single entity. So oftentimes this would be used for Lord Sniping. You would stack this one on with loads of other debuffs, fire debuffs, to put your fire glaives to just shoot the crap out of any legendary lord or whatever to kill them really quickly. But dropping it down to 20%, the problem with doing that is that if you've only got one use of it for one entity, it's not an area of effect, you're better off equipping something else. And this is something that Creative Assembly does quite a bit. They see people use something that's very powerful, and what they do is, right, we need to nerf that, and they nerf it so much that it's no longer worth equipping, and then this is just going to become a forgotten item, just like Entrepreneur is for the High Elves. It was overpowered as fuck in Warhammer 2. So what they do, they nerfed it so much that I just don't get it, because it's totally useless now. It doesn't do anything. So, well, comparatively nothing to what it used to do. They over-nerf things sometimes. And I just think that this is one of those cases where this item is now a piece of shit. It's no longer a blue item. That should be a grey item, I think. Chalice of Blood and Darkness. So I like the idea behind this item, and I think that the appropriate rework to it is good. Where previously you had to be within like 55 or 35 meters of a spellcaster casting something, and you would get some regen while they were casting. Now they're anywhere across the map. If someone casts a spell, you get some heal with this item. So that's a really good one, especially considering the Torok units, the Bull Centaur Toroks. They've got battle healing cap increase in their stat line with not that many ways of actually getting regen. So equipping this on them could be a way for them to actually reach that battle healing cap. So that's good. Stone Mantle got nerfed a little bit, which is understandable. That was kind of OP. Interesting to note that there is no mention of the armor of Gazrak, which that item fucking sucks. You know, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go over every single faction change here. Beastmen are fine. These are just mild things. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Bretonnia. So Lewin Leoncoeur's getting magic attacks there. I wanted to talk about the Hippogriff Knights, didn't I? So going down here, Royal Hippogriff Knights here. So attribute added, perfect vigor, magical attacks, true. Don't care about multiplayer costs or recruitment costs. That doesn't matter too much. Upkeep costs, that's more important for campaign. Increased to 525. That's fine. Funny enough, that's actually cheaper than what it used to be on Legendary difficulty, because you would have a 10% upkeep cost penalty on Legendary difficulty in Warhammer 2, but they took that away in Warhammer 3, so it was actually cheaper in Warhammer 3, and there would be 550 in Legendary in Warhammer 2, so I don't mind that extra 25 gold. Plus you can reduce that significantly by getting pastures, each one reducing it by 3%, so that's fine. Number of entities from 8 to 12, which you would see as a bit of a buff if you take life magic out of the equation, because what really worked with Royal Hippogriff Knights before was getting a life wizard in them. Because there were so few entities, each entity had about 1,000 health, so it would take a bit to kill a single entity, which means you could use Earthblood or Regrowth to keep them at max entities for longer. Now, with them going to 12 entities, but without the hit point increase, that means each entity is actually reduced in hit points, meaning that life magic is going to be more difficult to keep those alive than it was before. However, if they're getting that extra 15% ward save by default, that would possibly compensate them for that damage reduction, maybe. They're also getting a morale buff, so that's interesting there. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting note about the... I don't think that's necessarily a good or bad thing, it's just a way different to use it. So with the Chaos Dwarves, a lot of changes to them, I think. Mostly nerfs, because obviously they came out, they were kind of overpowered. This is what happens usually with a race pack. Comes out, everyone goes, oh, they're overpowered. And then they get nerfed a little bit over time. I imagine 6 months from now, Chaos Dwarves will be nerfed even further, because they are very powerful. Chaos Dwarf Legendary Lords no longer lose their immortality upon Confederation. That's good. Has Throt, the Unclean, got that fixed? I can't remember if that got fixed or not. I need to test that out. Fixed a script error when completing long campaign victory. Removed Infernal Engineer from Drasvath's Cinderbreath mount. Okay, so one thing that I noticed about the changes to Chaos Dwarfs is that they didn't change tags. This is something that Creative Assembly is really sort of dropping the ball on. They have got a lot of abilities and technologies that have the wrong tags and therefore don't work. And I'll get into some of these in a bit, because it happens a lot with the Warriors of Chaos. But one such thing is with the Infernal Castellan. There's one particular trait that I really like the idea of, but it has the wrong tag, and that's Unethical, which reduces the upkeep cost and recruitment cost of Infernal Guard. But it's bugged, it doesn't work at all. And they mentioned that they were going to address that in their things that they were going to do. But they haven't done that. I went and checked in my old campaigns of Chaos Dwarfs. So I was a bit annoyed to see that that wasn't affected, because that would take someone 5 seconds. You just got to change the tag. That's it. There are so many, just tiny little database changes that they're aware of that they're not fixing. But anyway, so a bunch of other things that are getting fixed and reworked here. I imagine Astrogoth, yeah, getting a bit of a nerf there. Kind of deserves it. He's very powerful. Okay, moving on to the next faction that we want to talk about. There's loads of stuff here too. Oh yeah, also Demonsmith Sorcerers no longer getting free magic. Fair enough. I mean, that was overpowered, obviously. Okay, Dark Elves. Right, Dark Elves, this is definitely something I want to mention. As much as they said that Bretonnia was getting a love, which I'm not super happy with the Bretonnia changes. I haven't played much Bretonnia since Immortal Empires first came out, because I think that Bretonnia has fallen behind, and I do not feel like these changes make any difference. I do not think that Bretonnia is suddenly going to become as popular as the other races, or more popular races. I think that they just haven't done enough for Bretonnia. It doesn't incentivize me to play Bretonnia, because in my opinion, Bretonnia actually plays better in Warhammer 2 than it does in 3. I just don't really enjoy playing them in 3. So what I would like to see them do for Bretonnia is give them back walls for minor cities, because that was very useful because their garrisons are so trash. Walled cities buys you more time to actually get over there and try to save them. That's something that I would like to see them do. I think they definitely need a bit of a skill tree rework, and they kind of need some hero reworks, because it just gets a little bit dull. They really feel like a Warhammer 1 race in Warhammer 3 at the moment. They need a bit more interesting stuff. They don't just need stat reworks here and there to make their existing units more useful. They kind of need some more units, some more characters, some more heroes, and some real reworks of their existing ones. Okay, the Dark Elf Slave update. Now, this one here, this is actually stuff that I really liked seeing, because I was very I was really pissed off about the changes that the Dark Elves got from Warhammer 2 to Warhammer 3. It's one of the things that really broke down my relationship with Creative Assembly. It was already in tatters by that point anyway. But when I got early access to Immortal Empires and I saw what happened to the Dark Elves, I made it a point to really resist these changes. I said to them that they were not going to be good, they're not going to be well received, and I'm fairly sure I was mostly right by those sort of predictions. I have not seen much love towards the Dark Elves across the community since Immortal Empires. Most of the time that I've covered Dark Elves, people have been like, Dark Elves boring, don't want to see this, I don't play Dark Elves. Which I don't want to play Dark Elves either, because their slave system sucks. It doesn't mean they're a weak race, I just think that they're not fun. But some of the changes that have been made here, I think, might give it a second chance to go try out the Dark Elves now. So Dark Elves now have the ability to consume their slaves in order to rush construction. Cool, that's just adding more mechanics for them. That is not a bad side at all. Even though they're borrowing it from Chaos Dwarves, that's good. High control now reduces the slave consumption within a province. Good, I have no problem with that. Post-battle slave rewards have been rebalanced. That's good. Slave rewards, I don't really do much raiding, so that's not personally going to affect me, so I'm not really going to comment on it, but I think a lot of other people do raid, so that'll be good for them. Remove the construction speed buffs from maintaining large amount of slaves. Yeah, that's of course because you got this here now. Adjusted slave quotas edict to reduce the cost of rush construction. Something reason growth mat, that's fine. Slaves are now consumed and the bonus effect are now applied on a per building basis if they can be afforded, rather than all buildings simultaneously turning off on if the player has over 100 slaves. Yeah, that does quite easily sort of bypass that. Because the thing is with the new slave system, when it introduced in Warhammer 3, it was not robust at all. It was a very, very stupid, very basic system that could very easily have its mechanics bypassed. Just really shit system, and I'm glad they're starting to sort of work it around and get rid of it. So that's good. All buildings which have bonus slave effects now also consume slaves. I don't know if that's also good. That might make those buildings not worth building. Again, I'd have to go in and have a look at the Dark Elf campaign. Slave consumption per building has been lowered. That's good. All slave consumption buildings now provide lower base benefits but greater bonus effect if slave requirements are met. Yeah, I guess that's fine. I'll again have to look into it. Ports no longer consume slaves for bonus income. They now generate slaves per turn. That's good. Again, I really need to go and have a look at what this means because they're not actually given the actual effects. But it's good that you can start getting more passive slaves as opposed to requiring you to fight battles. Because what would end up happening in the later stages of the campaign, you've got so many economic buildings, you would just have to fight so many battles just to keep the slave high enough to actually get the benefits from it. And now having extra ways of generating them passively would help mitigate that. Because previously there was a few traits, a few like ancillaries you can get. And I think that the assassins could also generate a little bit of slaves, but not very much. So again, I have to have a look at it. But I like the sound of it at the very least. This has been done to help counter stacking slave cost per turn into the end game. Also providing rewarding targets for hunting down and capturing ports with your Black Arcs. Yeah, so I agree with that. Yeah, a bunch of other changes here. So I think there's actually been some good changes for the Dark Elves, but I actually need to go and play a campaign and decide for myself, which still not loving this compared to Warhammer 2's Dark Elf systems. But I'll see how we go. Yeah, that's not worth mentioning. The Dwarves. Greenskins, nothing really worth mentioning there. High Elves, don't think they're really worth mentioning. Apart from Chaos Dwarves now provide appropriate bonuses when captured by Altharian. That's good, because that was silly that they didn't think about that, but it's good that's been sorted. Khorne, not really worth mentioning anything there. Kislev, not really. Okay, the only thing worth mentioning is Armored Corsairs are getting 10 additional entities. Not that big of a deal, though. Lizardmen, a few basic bugs being fixed up there. Norska. I would have really liked to see Harald Hammerstorm being available for Norska as well, similar to how Ulrika was available to Kislev and the Empire. But that's not going to be the case there. Nurgle, nothing too important there for Nurgle. Ogre Kingdoms, not really interesting changes. Same thing with the Skaven. I mean, that's a really rare bug, that one. But that's good that's being fixed, I guess. Slanesh, not really. Oh, yeah, you know, Nakari received some love in this update. So previously, and I'm going to have to test this out, you would charge into something, and he would charge, like, significantly before he was actually close enough to the entity, and he would always miss. It would be very frustrating when basically cycle charging him, because he's supposedly really good at it. But if his metadata was a bit more reliable, that would be good, making him significantly better at sniping characters, which he should be really good at. So the Empire, just, you know, these stat buffs and switches around. It's not really that big of a deal. Most of it's tooltip changes. Tomb Kings, the army cap can no longer be ignored via the recruitment of Saved Lords. Meh, I like that exploit. I understand it trivializes the Tomb Kings campaign. I actually played a Tomb Kings campaign with Arkin with that, and I recruited like 20 Lords by turn 10, and it trivialized the campaign. I was like, yeah, this is boring now. So even when doing it, it wasn't fun, but you could do it. Sartharael now has a unique trait and starts as an immortal. That's interesting, because I have actually confederated Sartharael before, and he didn't have a unique trait. But I also don't really like how Zinch is playing at the moment, so I'm not really keen to go see what it is. I don't think it's going to give me an incentive to go and play another Zinch campaign. Vampire Coast gets some benefits of the Bretonnia update. I really don't think it's going to impact them much at all. Vampire Counts, they're getting a pretty significant nerf, and thank fuck for this. The underlying chances of units returning as part of the Dead Rise Again feature has been tweaked, resulting in approximately a third fewer units returning post-battle over the course of the campaign. Thank the fucking Lord for that, because that has to be one of the most frustrating things in the game. You know, you win a battle against the Vampire Counts and their entire fucking army revives with 50% health, and they come back and attack you over and over and over again over an end turn. Fuck that shit. So, I'm glad this has all been reduced significantly. I kind of feel like they need to rework the system a bit more. Like, characters that go in and attack should lose all of their movement if they lose the battle. It's frustrating when the vampire accounts lose a battle over an end turn and then just attack again, or they raise some more dead and then just attack again. They can sometimes attack 3 or 4 times with the exact same army, continuously losing over a single turn. That really kind of needs to be addressed. But yeah, fuck this mechanic. I'm glad that's getting a nerf. I don't think it's enough. I'd like to see friggin' 2/3 fewer units returning post-battle. Because, you know what? If you lose a battle, fuck your army. You deserve to lose them. But they just have like a, I'm immune from defeat mechanic. Oh, I lost the battle? Guess what? I still have my entire army. Fuck that mechanic. Whoever thought that was a good idea, bloody change it. Not good. Yeah, seeing all these things here. Nerfs. Good. Big nerfs. Make it to 0%, by the way. Sorry, I really hate that mechanic. Warriors of Chaos. Okay, so there's a lot of things I wanted to see with the Warriors of Chaos that I'm not seeing here. It's mostly just changes around, like, numbers. I don't care about that. Like, max entity hit points per splash attack, whatever. It's not a big deal. So, going over some of these things, because I've been noticing it in my own campaign. If we go into the undivided text, and if you go to these ones here for the monogod tech tree areas. Rotten Altar. Nurgle authority +1 for each active gift of Nurgle. This is bugged. This is bugged. This is bugged. And this is bugged. Do you know why? Because it has no tag. You don't actually get any Slaanesh authority. You don't get any Zinch authority, no Khorne authority, no Nurgle authority. And the reason for that is because it doesn't have a fucking tag. Do you see how this one here, it says all authority +1, all armies? It's got a tag on it. It works. You know, if you have a look at this, Zinch authority -1, Nurgle authority +1, all armies. Guess what? It works. These fucking things here, they don't work. Okay, this creative assembly's got a real problem with just not putting the proper tags on their system. So I've also got Azazel over here, right? Azazel. Yeah. So, Ecstatic Adoration, Control +6, Local Province, Casualty Replenishment Rate +6. No fucking tag on that Casualty Replenishment Rate. It's bugged. It doesn't work. If you have a look over here at Fete Galopot, Casualty Replenishment Rate +6, Lord's Army. If you look over here, Casualty Replenishment Rate +30% for this Lord. You've got to put you got to put the right tags in this. There are so many tags all across the game. It's not just Warriors of Chaos. Across pretty much every single faction, they've just got the wrong tags. It's basic database management. You could have a fucking intern fix this shit. All you just got to do is assign some workforce to go and put in the appropriate tags. It's very frustrating that this game has got like years old, like wrong tags all over the place, especially with campaigns that have been reworked or new stuff. So that's very frustrating. That's still there. Okay, so that's my major irk with the Warriors of Chaos. Wood Elves. I don't think the Wood Elves have anything that we really need to mention apart from Ariel. Well, now apparently spawned. Apparently she was bugged before. I haven't played much Wood Elves recently, so I think the last time I played them, I did actually manage to get Ariel. Great, this is happening again. Stop that bloody grunting. And then a few changes. Fix your T. Peak settlement incorrectly being a major summon. Yeah, so for the Chaos Dwarves, you can actually turn that into a tower. I guess now you can't. I guess if you've got an existing campaign, you can still leave it as a tower. I have to check that out. But it would only have like 4 settlement slots, not 5. 10, whatever, 8, whatever it had before. Realms of Chaos, who cares? Nobody plays. I don't care about the Realms of Chaos at all. Oh no, this one. Fix an issue with diplomacy where an offering peace alongside offering to break any form of alliance and trade agreement would result in only peace deal. Oh man, I'll admit, I abuse that a lot, so I just find that funny. I haven't actually done it at all in this particular campaign, but I have in the past done that a fair bit. So those are the... Yeah, that's all the stuff that I want to cover there for patch 3.1. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. There's no sort of downsides to anything we're seeing here. It's just it's obviously a work in progress. They've got a lot more to do to sort of get Warhammer 3 to be a relatively that's never going to be bug free, but there's a lot more that they need to do. Okay, let's fight this battle over here like I said we were going to do.
Yes, Lord of
and put Harald Hammerstorm to the test. So what I'm going to do in this battle here is try to, as much as possible, just use Harald, because we want to just see how he does. And everyone else is just going to be somewhat supportive. But yeah, it obviously doesn't look like a difficult battle. But yeah, he's only rank 1, so he will get a lot stronger over time. But I've also given him good equipment. But I mainly want to have a look at his abilities. The Hammer of Harald, or whatever it's called. That's explosion attack. So these guys here will just give him some support. And once we see how he's performing, I don't imagine he'll be able to tank the entire army. I'll just end the battle very quickly with Be'lakor and the heroes and be done with it. So let's send him in. So I've got the Gift of Chaos for the portal glyph for all undivided characters, which funnily enough doesn't apply to Be'lakor. Interesting. Apparently he's not considered undivided. Them shooting us is not going to do anything. So yeah, the Hammer of Harry. Let's see how this does. Oh, right. So... I thought I would have to target something. My bad. Let's give away another 2 minutes for that. So, we've got Bane of the Dead. Oh yeah, that's right. It removes the undead attribute. I really have to see exactly what that does. Alright, he's getting smashed up by the enemy lord. I might have to get Be'lakor to go sort that dude out. Bring these guys in here to give him a bit of a heal. Stop hurting my Harry. But yeah, he's killing fairly slowly. I mean, for a rank 1 character, it's alright. He's going up against dwarfs. Reasonably strong. Give him some support. Session of Be'lakor. Nah, it's fine. Yeah, if we want to end this battle, all we're going to do is put down some Pit of Shades that'll sort it out. Alright, now let's see what this does, if we actually use it correctly this time. Okay, that's very powerful. Yeah, so getting him into a blob, and then popping that down, that did a lot of damage. Because he was only up to about 4,000 or 5,000, so it did like 16,000 damage or something. Yeah, so I think the way to use him is have him directly fight these single entities. Don't bother too much about infantry like that. And then to get rid of mass amounts of infantry, the Hammer of Harry. That's pretty damn good. Get this going. Yeah, they're not going to do much damage to us. We're high level characters. Are they? Mind your own business over here. Could you sort that out? We're busy doing this over here. But yeah, he's doing pretty well. He's been surrounded. There's another lord here smashing him. That is not a favourable position to be in. But he is also on foot, which makes him hard to hit. Like all these guys here. Hardly any of them are actually going to hit him. Okay, ready to pop this down again. Alright, so let's take note of this. He's at 22,000 currently. 22,500. Pop this down. Let's see how much it goes up by. Oh, he didn't actually do the animation there, but it went up by 10,000. He's just like, how about I do the ability and not animate? Fair enough. So yeah, giving him an item like the Crown of Everlasting Conquest. Is that? That's an enchanted item though, isn't it? Which will conflict with his unique item. I guess putting him in with some Nurgle heroes, like we've done here, will sufficiently compensate him for healing. But yeah, for a rank 1 character, getting 36,000 damage, no upkeep costs. That's not too bad. Okay, look, we'll go get him over here. Battle's almost over by the look of it, but let's finish this off. We've seen enough here. Yeah, he's almost at his regen cap there as well. Okay, really cool. Went on a fair bit of detour, and we'll just, hang on, we've got one more of these in. Yeah, we'll do one more, and then we'll just bit of shades them.
I fly. Scar them. Veteran champion. Fear me. The Hammerstorm descends.
Let's help get rid of these guys over here. Alright, so 37,000, pop it down again. About 12,000 damage. That's pretty good. Doesn't require any winds of magic. Just do it over and over again. That's pretty damn powerful. Really good for infantry blobs. And for a level 1 character to be able to kill that much against dwarfs as well. I mean, he had a little bit of support, but again, level 1 character. With good equipment, though. Still, when he gets to, like, rank 50 and he's got his Boons of Chaos sorted, yeah, he might be able to take on entire armies by himself. He's very strong. Cool. Alright, well, that's all the things I think we need to go over today with the changes with patch 3.1. Hope that you guys are happy with how the game's progressing. There's still ways to go. There's still things that are very frustrating in the game that need to be fixed, but I think they're picking up the pace significantly in 2023. It really felt like 2022 was just nobody was at the helm. It was just empty. Nobody was really working on the game at all, which is very frustrating. But it does feel like the team is sort of picking up their pace now, and they're getting things done. I just wish they would focus on certain things that I really want to see change. Like certain technologies, as an example, that are completely bugged and have no effect, that really should be a priority to fix. And especially considering all they have to do is, like, put the tag in. It would take an intern 5 seconds. Just go in, put the tag in. That's it. Alright, cool. Well, anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.